Hey y'all, it's Bethany here. Welcome back to my channel, Bethany Brings Books. I am glad y'all are here joining me today. I'm going to try to do a quick reading update. I guess this would be a mid-month update. It's kind of past mid-month. Today is, what, the 17th? 16th, I think. It's either the 16th or the 17th. I don't remember. Y'all, I can't keep track of my days. But yeah, I wanted to do a reading update. I have a busy weekend ahead of me. Today is actually Wednesday. Tomorrow I'm working. Then Friday I'm actually leaving to go out of town for my brother's wedding. It's going to be about 3 hours away from where we live. So I have a lot to get done over the next couple days. So I thought I would go ahead and film this quick reading update and let y'all know what I've been reading. And then at the end of the month, I will probably, after the end of the month, I'll do another reading update with what I finished and what I have read by that point. But today we're going to talk about what I've already read and what I'm currently reading. So let's get started, guys. To say I've already been having a really great reading month. First of all, I finished Northfield Park. I talked about that in a separate wrap-up video. I'm not going to talk about it here. I'm just going to say I loved it and it was a 5-star read for me. And most of it, honestly, I read most of it in March. I just finished the last few chapters within the first week of April. So basically it was a March read, but I did love it, and I have a whole video dedicated to it, so if y'all want to check that out. It is just a whole video talking about how much I enjoyed it and ranking the 4 Jane Austen novels that I have read. That was a loud truck going by. So that was what I finished, first of all, and then we finally finished Farmer Boy. My kids, of course, loved this, like I said, and I loved it. I remember growing up, I don't feel like I liked this one as much as the rest of the series, and I think I feel pretty much the same. The first half to me was a little bit boring. I feel like the first half, I don't know, it takes place in winter and it's kind of cold, and some of the stuff, his chores and stuff that he did to me was a little bit boring. I don't know. I just found the second half more charming to me once he, I like the elements of during the summer and the spring and the summer when they're doing the farm work and stuff. And I liked particularly where it talked about them having the 4th of July festival. That was interesting. So yeah, I really thought the second half I enjoyed a lot better, but I think I gave it 4 stars, 4.5 maybe. Overall, I would say, yeah, it's a 4.5 to 5 star. Just for my enjoyment, probably more like a 4 star, but my kids loved it. And we went ahead and started on Little House on the Prairie. Now, I did actually read this last year, so for me, it's definitely a very quick reread because I read it when I was young. Now I've read it last year, and now I'm reading it again. So it's not going to be as interesting, I don't think, for me, just because I've read it recently. But the kids are enjoying it, and we've read like maybe 3 chapters. But yes, love this series so much. And then I have started Agnes Gray by Anne Bronte, y'all, and I am about probably close, I would say probably about 40%, that much. So I am enjoying this. It's a little bit slow, personally. It seems slow so far, but at this point we're just kind of following Agnes and her different experiences as a governess. So we've seen her with a couple of different families at this point, and I have to say, the first family she was with, the children, oh my word, the little boy, sometimes he was so cruel, and like some of the stuff, if you're sensitive to like animal cruelty, some of the stuff that he was talking about doing to animals was I didn't like it. But that was kind of, I was like, oh, I don't like this. I'll be glad when I'm past this part. So those children were horrid. Oh my word, horrid. But yeah, so I am enjoying it. I find it a little bit slower paced and definitely a totally different vibe to me than Mansfield Park. It's just, I think the Bronte sisters just have a way of writing that's a lot more, that's just, it's kind of more gloomy and darker. In itself, it's not really a dark book so far, but it just feels more, the vibes just feel a little bit darker. But yeah, I am interested in finishing this up, and it's very short, so I think I should easily be able to finish this by the end of the month. And then I have also started this, The Ministry of Intercessory Prayer by Andrew Murray. I'm not super far in this yet. I've only read about that much, but loving it so far. It's been very good. Just some really good stuff already. I've highlighted so much. This is really good. And he wrote With Christ in the School of Prayer. I read that a long time ago. I need to reread it because I don't even know if I ever finished it. I know I read a lot of it and it was really good. I think I did finish it. I think so. It was very good. But I need to reread it. And this is kind of like a follow-up to that, I think. And so far it's been encouraging. It's not discouraging. It's not like sometimes you read books and you feel discouraged because you feel like, oh, I'm not doing what I need to do and I need to do better. But this doesn't make me feel that way so far. It's written in an encouraging way to encourage you to prayer and to encourage you of the necessity and the power that is in prayer. So it's really good. I can't wait to talk about it once I actually read more and dive into it even more. Now, I think that's everything that I have started. Oh wait, I do have 2 more that I've started. Actually 3 more. So first of all, I did start Ive Said Love by C.B. Cabanis. I'm gonna have to go back and listen. She sent me Courtney. It's Courtney from Courtney Reads. She sent me how to say it, and now I've already forgotten. C.B. Cabanis. I don't know. CP. I keep saying CB too, and it's not CB. It's CP, I think. C.P. Cabanis. That's how I'm going to say it. And I'll listen again and try to get it correctly on the next video. But I've read the first book in a series that she kindly offered to let me read. I read the first one last month, and I'm going to talk about it once I finish the second one in the series. And I'm reading the second one and actually really enjoying it. I'm reading that on my phone, so I'm not super far into it yet, but it is called Ive Said Love. And at this point, she does not have a cover. It comes out next month, I think. By the time I release this video, if she has a cover, I'll put a picture of it up here. But yeah, I'm reading that one on my Kindle, on my phone, on my app on my phone, and very much enjoying it. So I can't wait to talk about it once I finish it and get to share it with y'all. And y'all just go over there and give Courtney some love and check out her channel. She's very sweet, and I'm so glad that she reached out to me and offered me the opportunity to read her book. So I started that one, and then I also started this one, which is Hans Christian Andersen Fairy Tales. This was one of the books that my kids chose for me to read in 2024, and I decided to go ahead and start it. So I've read, I also thought it was interesting just kind of reading the start, which told us a little bit about Hans Christian Andersen and his life. It was very brief, but it was interesting. So the first one that I read, some of them are very short. The first one that I read was The Princess and the Pea, which was super short. And I still don't kind of understand The Princess and the Pea. I guess I need to look it up. Thumbelina I read. That one was interesting. That one was a little bit longer. And then The Emperor's New Clothes I read. That one was, now that one I see the point. That one is very much, has very much a very clear point to it. So that one's kind of funny, but also very direct in its point. And then I'm at The Little Mermaid, which I don't know if I'm going to read it or not, because I actually recently read The Little Mermaid. I have a pop-up book of it, and I recently read it. So I don't know. I may read it. I'm not sure. But when I read the pop-up version, I was like, and how it ended, I was like, oh my goodness, this is nothing like the Disney movie. This is sad. It was nothing like the Disney movie. I was like, what? So, I'm not sure if I'm going to read it. It's a little bit longer, so I'm not sure if I'm going to read it yet. I may, but the next one after that is called The Steadfast Tin Soldier. So, I don't know. It's just got a handful of the fairy tales, and I am working through this slowly. So, that's where I'm at. Then we started The Secret Garden. This is a beautiful illustrated edition. I have actually already read this, but I'm rereading it, and I started reading it with my kids. I'm not sure. They really are liking the Little House series, so I don't know if I'm going to keep reading this with them right now. And just, so if I read this at night, then I'm not going to read the Little House at night. And I tried starting this, and they really wanted me to read a Little House book, but I did go ahead and read this one. So I don't know. I'm going to keep reading it, but I don't know if I'm going to keep reading it with them or just read it myself and then come back to read it with them at a later time. Who knows? We'll see. But I've read like 2 chapters in it, I think. Yeah, 2 chapters. So, but it does have very beautiful illustrations, and I want to read this now because it's the perfect book to read in April. Just absolutely perfect. And now let's talk about the 2 books that I have finished that I have not discussed yet. This might get a little bit long-winded. I don't know. So first of all, let's talk about this book, Never Fall Again by Lynn Blackburn. I gave this book, I want to think it was 4 stars, 4.5 maybe. So this book I really, really, really enjoyed. And 90% of the way through, I thought it was going to be a 5-star read for me. But we'll get to it in a minute. There's some things happen that dropped it for me. But first of all, let's just talk about what it's about. So we're following Landry Hutton, and she has been living in Gossamer Falls, which is a small mountain town in North Carolina, for the past 3 years. Her husband passed away. He was abusive. So after he died, she decided to leave her life, you know, the life that she had there in the town that she lived in with him, and move somewhere else and start over, start fresh. So she moves to Gossamer Falls, and she gets a job working at a resort there, and the resort caters to like celebrities and high-end people and wealthy. And so she works there as a potter. She has her pottery business. And she has decided that she wants to make her home there permanent. She wants to build a home there. So she approaches Callum Shaw. And he is like the co-owner of a large construction company in Gossamer Falls. And she approaches him about building the home, and they kind of sparks fly between them, but they both have their own issues and things that they are still trying to heal from, and so they don't really want to move into a relationship. They both have this mindset that they don't want to move into a relationship right now because they don't want to get hurt again. They both have issues they're dealing with, but they're attracted to each other. And so right off the bat, after she decides to stay there permanently, something happens, and there's a fire at the resort where she works at, and so she begins to wonder, is there some things from her past that are affecting her now? Because some of the things that happened seem like, in a way, they might be directed at her, and she doesn't know. So Callum, or Cal, they begin just working closely together, not only in her house plans, but in rebuilding what the fire burned down at the resort, and also kind of figuring out what's going on. And they begin to fall for each other. And so what I loved about this book, first of all, I love Landry, I love Callum, I love the small town mountain feel. It felt like where I live, really. I don't live in the mountains. Just the southern small town elements really just felt like where I live. And then even the fact that it was in the mountains of North Carolina just really clicked with me too, because I have been to the mountains for many times. ever since I was a child. We went on vacation there yearly for most years, and so I could just picture it and picture it like in my mind where it was set. So I loved all that. What I loved so much about this was the family dynamic. So Cal is from he has this huge extended family. He has 2 brothers, many cousins, and just the dynamic there, their family gatherings and the extended family. Granny Quinn, I think is her name, and Cal's parents, and like we see the group text, the family group text and the group chat, and how they're just always checking on each other and concerned about each other, and the cousins are always looking out for each other. And Cal and 2 of his cousins built homes, tiny homes next to each other, so they're all like right there close to each other, and they're always checking in on each other. And I loved that dynamic. As someone who grew up with a ton of cousins and we always hung out and we were very close, I loved that dynamic of the story. Like, I love a good cousin story where the cousins are close and always looking out for each other and stuff. I just love that in a book, and this had it. It had those elements. It had the cousin love where it feels almost like sibling love, but it's cousins and they love each other and they're taking care and looking out for each other. I know, I just keep talking about it, but I can't help it. I loved it. And I loved the communication. I loved that Landry and Cal don't, when there's issues that come up, they communicate. They don't sit there for 10 chapters, like, hiding things, saying, oh, should I talk about this or not? They go ahead and address it, like, look, this is the issue, let's talk about this. They get it out in the open, and I loved that. I don't know, there's so much I could say I loved about it. But yeah, the big thing for me was just the characters and the family dynamic and the small town and the relationships. Mo, which is one of the cousins, I can't wait to hear his story. I can't wait to hear, there's like several more characters. I can't wait to hear their stories, the way she's written it. And so I would say if this book had been that entirely, it would have been just 5 stars. What dropped it for me? The suspense. So the suspense was very light, very light. And the way it was wrapped up, that is what frustrated me. So it was very light. This really did not feel suspenseful at all. And at the end, when she wraps everything up, that was what frustrated me, y'all, because we get the story of what's going on and who the bad guy is. Of course, the situation is resolved. But this is what I don't like. First of all, I don't like there's not a lot of on-page interaction with the bad guy. I don't like that. I don't like for there just to be a bad guy like randomly thrown in there that you really don't know a lot about. There's multiple situations that happen that for me are loose ends that were not tied up. Like, I'm like, what happened? Like, why did they do this? How did they do this? How did they pull that off? That situation, how did they pull that off? Why did they even do that? I don't like that. Like, it's like once it's resolved, once the big like scene, you know how suspense books have, they'll have some kind of climactic event. Once that's resolved, we don't see anything else about the bad guy. And we don't see like what happens to them. We're not told what happens to them after it's over. We're not told why they did it really in detail. We're not told how they pulled it off. We're not given all those details, and I need to know that. I am a true crime fan. I listen to true crime podcast. I love watching TV detective mystery shows. That's most of what I watch. So I need to know. I need to know the details. I need to know why they did this. I need to know how they pulled it off, all the details. I need to know. I just need to know it all. And so it felt a bit over the top in what happened and what the person did, the extent of what they went to. And then we're not told anything about like how they put it off and why they did it. And that, to me, you're given the briefest of details about why they did it. And I need to know. I need to get in their head and know. So that was what brought it down for me. But I would love if Lynn Eason would just, or Lynn Blackburn, sorry. If Lynn Blackburn, I keep getting her name mixed up with Lynette Eason. If Lynn Blackburn would entirely write just like fiction, kind of like what Becky Wade does with, she writes contemporary romance, but she'll usually add like a very light mystery in that her characters are working through. If she would do that, I think it would be absolutely phenomenal, and I would love it. I would love it, because I felt like, for me, what she did strongly with this was the characters and their stories, their relationships and stuff. And it felt like she wrote the story and then threw in the suspense elements just to call it a suspense novel. That's how it felt to me. And I think if she kind of left suspense behind and did entirely contemporary romance, it would be amazing. Amazing. So yes, I loved this. There were faith elements in it that stood out to me. Lindsay from BFCG talked about this, how Cal, there's one point when something has happened and he asked Landry if he can pray with her, and that was a beautiful scene. I loved that so much. Like, we don't see that a lot in books, and I really love that. But yes, overall, I loved it. I did read a e-arc of this from NetGalley, so I was so glad that I got that, and I purchased this because I was reading it and loving it so much that I went ahead and purchased this, and I cannot wait to read the rest of the series. Like, I am so excited to read the rest of the series. Like I said, Bo, I really can't wait for his story. He's one of the cousins, and he has had some heartbreak that has led to him having some depression and stuff, and so I feel like I'm going to relate to his character somewhat. I don't know, but I'm interested in reading him. So there, guys, one more book to talk about that I've finished, and that is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. Buddy read this with Chrissy from Chrissy's Purple Library and Kelly from Kelly Reads a Lot, and I have to say that I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it with them. I have buddy read another book with Kelly last year. We buddy read a Daphne du Maurier book, but I've never buddy read with Chrissy, and let me just say, Chrissy, you were so fun. She was cracking me up last night when she finished this book, and she was sending us the messages and stuff. I was rolling because she was cracking me up with her response to this. It was so much fun. I really had a lot of fun reading it with you ladies, and I'm so glad that y'all let me join in on your buddy read. I think they had talked about reading this, and then I had mentioned reading it, and so we all joined up. I don't know. It's been so long since we decided to read it, but it was fun. I really enjoyed the buddy read. The book itself, y'all, my thoughts. Oh my, what am I going to say about this book? I don't know what I'm going to rate this book, because let's just say this, for enjoyment, as far as, I don't know how to rate it, because the story itself kept me very interested, and I was like reading, trying to finish it because I wanted to see what was going to happen. But overall, I was just not happy with some of the character choices. So we follow Philip. He's a young man who he was raised by his cousin, I think. Yeah, his cousin, Ambrose. And the book opens up and his cousin has passed away. It's also set in the 1830s, I think. I did not know that from the story, though it doesn't say when it's set, but Kelly looked it up and said it was written in the 1830s. I felt it was a little bit hard for me to date it, because just from reading it, it felt a little bit more, I would say almost felt like turn of the century, but it was set in the 1830s. So anyway, Philip is like 24 years old, and his cousin raised him. They lived a very kind of isolated life in the English countryside, and his cousin has been making yearly summer visits to Italy and other parts of the world, to like warmer parts of the world, because his health is not great. Well, on one of these trips, he meets a lady named Rachel, and he marries her. And before he can come back home, he passes away. And so he's writing these letters to Philip, and Philip is very just some of the things that happen and the way things take place. Philip is very antagonistic towards Rachel, which is his cousin, which is Ambrose's wife, before she comes and he meets her. And so there's just a lot of like wondering what she's going to be like and what happened with their very short marriage, and what happened over in Italy. And then Rachel comes, and I can't really say a lot because spoilers. Let's just say that it's very atmospheric and very gothic in its vibes, and I don't know. Philip made so many poor choices to me. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about. Like, I got so frustrated with Philip and it felt like, oh, Philip, why are you being so blind and so ignorant? Why do you not see what's going on here? But anyway, so all of that, he frustrated me. Rachel frustrated me. Probably the one character that I liked mainly was Louise, which was a childhood friend of Philip. She just stuck with him, and I liked her. She told him the truth even when he didn't like it. But I would say, with all of the Daphne du Maurier vibes, the Daphne du Maurier in her finest, writing, the way she writes so well, those psychological aspects that she does so well are so heavy here. I mean, there's so much to think about. When I finished it, it's like with every other du Maurier that I've read, you want to go back, or I want to go back and reread it and be like, okay, so there's this detail that makes more sense now, and this detail makes more sense now, and kind of put together all the pieces. And that's how her books are. And I will say the ending was kind of what would you call it? I don't know what kind of ending it's called, but there's some things that are left hanging that you're not certain about. So she did it well. She pulled it off well, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, okay, I want to know for sure. I want to know for sure about this. But I don't know what I'm going to rate it, because the characters drove me crazy, and there was just stuff in it I didn't like, and I was mad about the characters' choices. So I really don't know what I'm going to rate it. It's not my favorite. My favorite is still Rebecca, and I think Rebecca will always be my favorite. But things about it that I say she did so well, the psychological aspects. She can write characters in such a way that there's so many things you could pull from it. Psychologically, you can see like their manipulative behavior, and I don't know, it's just, and that she can almost manipulate you in a way to believing certain things about the characters. I don't know, guys. So it kind of reminded me of Wuthering Heights, and not necessarily the plot, but just some of the themes and stuff reminded me of Wuthering Heights. It's kind of that type of story. It doesn't really have a happy ending. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, the buddy read itself was very fun. The book overall was enjoyable in the sense that it kept me coming back, and I was very intrigued. There were some parts that were a little bit slow. Like, I feel like she could have made it a little bit shorter, but yeah, there's my thoughts, guys. Sorry. I feel like I've been talking way too much in this video. So anyway, one more book. I got sidetracked. There is one more book that I've started and I forgot to talk about. But this book right here, While the City Sleeps by Elizabeth Camden, I started this and I'm about, I think, almost 50% through. I have to say, I'm loving this, guys. Loving this. I love Elizabeth Camden anyway. Her books, almost all of her books that I've read have been just amazing for me. And so I was so excited when she announced her new series, and this one has not disappointed so far. We're following Catherine Schneider, who is a dentist in 1913 New York, and she overhears one of her patients talking about details from a terrorist plot. I guess it would be a terrorist plot. I don't know if it would be considered terrorism back then, but it's a plot to cause harm and cause like bombs and explosions and things in New York. And she overhears details of it. Her patient is like under the influence of laughing gas, and so he's kind of rambling, and she doesn't realize to start with that what she's hearing is details to this plot to do these things around the city. So when she finds out, she's like, okay, when she figures it out, she's like, I've got to go talk to Jonathan, who is a police officer in the city, and he has been meeting her every evening for 2 years to walk her home, and she has developed this crush on him, but nothing more has come of it. He's never mentioned, he's never, acted like he had a crush on her. He just walks her home every night from her job as a dentist. And so she has feelings for him, but he's never brought the topic up with her, so she doesn't know how he feels toward her. But she goes to him about this plot, and this story is following, at this point, we're following kind of her involvement in this situation, how her life is now kind of in danger because she addressed this, because she brought it to attention, these two men to the attention of the police, and so now her life could be in danger because we don't know who's involved. Is it the mafia? Is it a political group who is trying to wreak havoc in New York City? So we don't know for sure yet. And I just really love it. I love the atmosphere. I love all the details of New York City at night in 1913, and just the way she brings all these details of the city and the beautiful historic sites and the architecture. And I like also that the main character, she writes a newspaper column to talk about city workers who work at night, and her newspaper column is called While the City Sleeps. So she writes this newspaper column, and each column talks about a different set or a different career that works at night in New York City in 1913. And so she just she writes it in a positive light. And so I just love that. I love all these elements. I also like Jonathan, who is the main male character. He's a police officer, and I just like him. I like reading about him as a police officer. I like reading about the police department in the early 1900s in New York. It's interesting to me, fascinating. So I'm loving this one, guys. Really loving it, and can't wait to talk about it more once I finish it. So there it is, guys. I feel like I've been trying to talk so fast to get all of this out. But there it is. That is my mid-month reading update, and I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all have been reading some fabulous books. Let me know what you've read so far this month that you've really enjoyed. If you've read something that is really good and you think I should read it, let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts. Anyway, guys, thank y'all for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.